this thing on?
We talking about practice, man.
Yeah, I work with my hands.
It's a misdemeanor in 27 states.
You gotta be comfortable with your co-host in this amount of space.
Yeah, I can see me and you.
This guy runs a state.
You get that through your head?
You just got hashtag content.
You know, technology and stuff.
Up in your grill. It's stuck in your teeth.
Now I have to mark them so I don't get the lick mic.
You're not really that stupid, are you?
Quavos.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
We'd have a lot of editing this time.
The ceiling is the roof. Let's make it happen.
The Buffalo Bills fried the Dirty Birds in the home of the original chicken sandwich. Holy cow. Buffalo's 3-1.
Spencer German of 97.5, the team in Rochester, providing us with some of that northern hospitality by coming out and talking about that win.
Plus, Nate Rowan of the Rochester Red Wings prepares us for the show's October entertainment.
And puck up for some cider lips because female correspondent Ashleigh Carter is on to talk fall date ideas.
To be determined. To be determined, episode 31, previously recorded from the studio in Mom's basement.
Oh, my word.
Stephen Bond at Sports by Bond with Matt Traybold at Trabs Matt. Previously recorded, so you're asking, why did we leave that goof up in there? Because it's hysterical.
We talked about a specific voice I was going to use while producing that, and I completely forgot what voice I was going to use because it's different from the Southern Hospitality or Northern Hospitality one. That was certainly a thing.
That was a thing. It'll be a thing later on the post-game press conference.
Yes.
It'll be a thing. Trabs Matt, what's the word?
Redemption.
Okay.
For me.
All right. It's been a day. Recording this on a Monday, and boy, has it been a day. We don't want to make a habit of starting with political stuff, but so we'll just touch on thoughts and prayers with everyone in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And anyone that had a family member out there or a connection to it in some way. It just seems very senseless and deeply, deeply saddening.
It was very calculated. There's a lot of things that made this the worst event of this kind in the history of this country.
At the time we're recording it, yeah. Sorry. At the time we're recording it, what was it, 59?
59 and...
Over 515
570 something?
Injured. Oh, was it 570?
Oh, I thought I was trying to go... I think that's what you said a second ago. I mean, it's not like to nitpick over an atrocity like this is...
Right.
Not something we're going to do.
Nice to see the UFC. We'll try to put some sports into it a little bit. UFC committed $1 million to the victims and their families, which is nice.
And then the student section for the men's basketball team at Nevada, Las Vegas, the Rebellion was tweeting out updates last night on where people could go, like to get refuge or to try to find loved ones, so on and so forth.
Unbelievable. It really was. And Tom Petty apparently clinging for his life at, what time do we have here, Trabs? 9:15 at night on a Monday. Just a crazy, crazy day. Let's get to some sports.
Yeah.
Let's get to the distraction that we all need. Packed show. We got a slam-packed show. 3 guests, guest-heavy. We're going to open it up first with Spencer German of 97.5, the team in Rochester. He's a Bills beat reporter, was down in Atlanta, was at the game. He witnessed what the heck happened and how the Bills got to 3-1. We'll catch up with a recurring Fox Nate Rowan, the director of communication for Rochester Red Wings. We're going to talk baseball as the baseball postseason.
It's big time for sports.
Right around the corner. This is a great time. And Ashleigh Carter, our female correspondent, fall date options. We're going to list about 10 of them. That's a really fun segment.
Yeah.
We recorded it prior to the A block, and that was a whole lot of fun. And a lot of laughs, too.
That's Inside Santa's Workshop he just gave you guys.
Well, hey.
Yeah, but it's absurd. I mean, the NBA starts in 2 weeks. The NHL starts this week. Full swing, NFL football, college football, baseball playoffs starting tomorrow or later today, depending on when you're listening to this. And then, I mean, college basketball starts in a month. Buckle up and get down, people.
Crazy. All right, so the Buffalo Bills somehow beat Atlanta on the road. We kind of know how. I guess. They're 3-1. The question is how.
And you don't want to attribute it all to this, but I remember saying on the Friday show, if they got this win, that I would start believing. It's not that I don't believe whatsoever, but it's because of an asterisk laden. I'll just say it's an asterisk. I don't want to put too many on it. Just because of an asterisk with this win, I don't know if I can really call them contenders, but yeah, there were a couple, I guess you could say lucky instances.
Nice road win. They received a few lucky bounces, and that's the way to put it. And not that an injury is a lucky bounce, but it's a lucky break. When you don't have to cover a top 3 wide receiver,
their best
a huge
player.
break.
I would say,
yeah,
he wasn't MVP, but I would say he's the best player on that roster for Atlanta.
From an offensive standpoint, he can break a game wide open. Simple as that. Mohamed Sanu goes down as well. The Trey White touchdown recovery was very controversial.
Yeah, well, we don't know if we have to get too heated going into it, but I thought it was bad. I mean, a lot of people think that it was the correct call, but it just plays into this narrative we're talking about.
The rule is confusing, and I think to your point in our pre-production meeting, which sounds very, very official, it's really just us sitting around talking sports.
No,
all right, pre-production meeting.
Yeah.
I thought they followed the rule correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a good rule. I think it should be modified in some way.
That's besides the point. That is obvious out of this. Well, my thing was that yes, the rule states that if he doesn't have full or if he loses control of the ball in any, and yes, he had some wrist flexion. His wrist was going a different way, but you see guys, whether it be a Tim Tebow jump throw for a touchdown. I mean, you see guys complete passes where it's not the perfect looking hand, the perfect looking arm. I think he powered through Jerry Hughes hitting his arm pretty well. And I mean, it's a case by case basis in terms of if people think it was a good call with the rule or bad call. So it's just definitely adds into the narrative though, regardless.
It does. It definitely, and it can't be ignored. The defense continues to be impressive, regardless of those.
Oh yeah.
Regardless of who lined up for Atlanta, you still had to face somebody, and the fact remained is that. Yeah, the Bills were facing a depleted Falcons offense. There's no question about it. But you still can't let the number 2s burn you, and they didn't. They did what they had to do, which was shut down the number 2 offense, or the number 2s on that offense, I should say. And they did it without Shaq Lawson, who has had a big impact. Yeah. And they did it without Ramon Humber for a little bit of this game, who injured his thumb. And he's the leading tackler on this team.
And speaking of this defense, I mean, you mentioned Ramon Humber. Ramon Humber, along with Micah Hyde, they had Tevin Coleman in bad situations. It seemed like, Tevin Coleman's absolutely going to run for a long and different yardage with the 2 situations here, but for a long touchdown run, and he's really going to try to put this game a little bit away. And then you had just a full extension trip up for Michael Hyde on him. And then you had Ramon Humber in a red zone situation a little bit later on, but Ramon Humber, huge loss. And this guy, not only leading tackler on the Bills, but going into last week was a top 3 tackler in all of the NFL.
We're going to get to the injuries in just a second. Offense, let's talk the offense quickly. The ground game returned. And I think that's the most appropriate way. Is they if this team is going to win, they have to establish Shady McCoy. It's just a fact. This team's not going to go anywhere throwing the ball 40 times a game. They're just not. And over the last 2 weeks, I think they've started to do that. From Denver to Atlanta, and that's difficult because those are 2 very good teams.
Yeah.
The one drive that went over 11:20, I think it was, in game time, was like the longest drive in many, many years for this Buffalo Bills team, which is crazy. I mean, that's what you need, though. If you're going to be a good team, I said it on Friday, I think. The key to Buffalo beating Atlanta was keeping Matty Ice on the sideline.
And it was such a big deal that, LaShawn McCoy didn't have maybe a LaShawn McCoy outburst in terms of rushing the football, but it was so much better, and the team as a whole, in this sense of the offense, than the last 2 weeks, even combined. So, hey, he only went for 70, and we're used to him having a lot of games where he goes for even more than that, and maybe some scores, but just the fact that it was such an increase on the last couple weeks, and plus, definitely a little bit scary to talk about real injuries here upcoming, but there was that span where Mike Tolbert, within the same 3 plays as LaShawn McCoy, went out injured, and Pat DeMarco was starting to tailback.
Yes.
He got 1 carry, and it didn't go well.
I think he's got 2 career carries now.
Yes.
But you mentioned that they did it behind a banged-up offensive line, and the other point on the offense worth noting before we get to injuries is Charles Clay looked really good.
Yes.
Again, listen, this is a guy that I think for the first few years of his Bills career was not on the same page as Tyrod, didn't fit well into whatever offense they were trying to run, now he's finding his niche and finding his groove back. He looks like the guy that the Bills thought they were getting from Miami.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he's been seemingly hobbled, and he is putting that all to rest.
Yeah.
And he is.
Yeah. The knee looks fine.
Yeah, you mentioned the offensive line, but you know what? Give it to Deion Dawkins. Now, not even talking about what he did in terms of his actual position, but I mean, I was talking about Mike Tolver a second ago. He had a big fumble, and I think it was in the red zone, and he ran up like 10 or 15 yards and jumped on it.
Yeah.
As a big guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, Deion Dawkins, he certainly has love for the game at the very least.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the injury front. Jordan Matthews, Ramon Humber, Cordy Glenn, and then I'm going to add Shaq Lawson to this.
Yeah.
Which injury is the biggest for them right now?
I'd have to say Ramon Humber. I mean, who thought that Ramon Humber, I mean, a lot of people thought he might not even be starting on this team. They're like, oh, Reggie Ragland going to camp. Obviously, Reggie Ragland is going to be that kind of name. He's at least the name.
Yeah,
and
second-round pick.
He just didn't have the production early on there in the offseason in order to back that up and even stay on this team. So Ramon Humber kind of not falls into a starting role, but gets it a little bit unexpectedly. And man, oh man, just one of the best tacklers in the NFL.
I would say Cordy Glenn, and I get that Ramon Humber is an issue, and I think I agree with you. Simply because they don't have the depth at linebacker.
Yeah.
I think that's the real key to this whole thing, is that the depth is there. But I would argue they don't have the depth in the offensive line, which makes Cordy Glenn that much bigger of a loss. Without Cordy Glenn, that puts Deion Dawkins on the left side of this line instead of the right side. When you plug him in on the left, you put a guy in Jordan Mills in there who was getting burned all day long on Sunday. That just can't happen for this team. This team, offensively speaking, wants to run the football. That's what they want their bread and butter to be. And if you've got a patchwork offensive line, you can't run the football. I don't care how good Shady McCoy is. If he's got three people in the backfield meeting him, he's not eluding that. He's not. And
and you have to give a plenty of merit to a Cordy Glenn. And just because he's not like a Ramon Humber and he has a stat that can really be put along with his name and make him a bigger name in terms of countrywide doesn't mean he's not a huge loss for this team. And I just remember looking up like, is that Matt Milano? This one of the rookie linebackers, and that happened more than once.
Yeah.
And then Tanner Vallejo had some time in there. I'm like, oof, this is going to be interesting going forward, because I don't think those guys were really supposed to be more than special teams at this point in their career.
And had Atlanta had the full complement of wide receivers at their disposal, that's probably a different game.
Yeah.
It probably is. And it's just, that's a fact. It is what it is. They didn't, and that's the way the NFL works.
Yeah, and just imagine, I mean, Austin Hooper was unbelievable week one. He didn't even do that much in this game.
Yeah.
But Levine Toilolo had a bunch of receptions in the first half of this game. And
kudos for getting his name, by the way.
It's such a fun name.
I can't do it. I'm not going to even try.
Many vowels.
Zay Jones with a crucial drop on a very catchable ball. You had a lot of confidence in your boy. I was reluctant on him.
I'll take
and
this
I don't want to say that I was right on him, because I don't want to be. But it doesn't look good early. I mean, these are inexcusable drops by a guy that had 399 college receptions.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are talking about how, like, nationwide, and I think this was actually said during the broadcast when he had that drop, that you don't see, like, a lot of these big-time rookie wide receivers, at least picked high, doing that well. I mean, Corey Davis isn't really making a lot of strides in Tennessee, so you're seeing this a little bit. You're like, oh, yeah, he's just a rookie, but, I mean, plenty of times in the past, you've seen rookies step up to the plate in a receiving core that really needs it, and even more so now with the Jordan Matthews injury. It's necessary, and you really hope that he can step up to the plate earlier than a lot of guys would at this point in their career.
He becomes the number one, at least for the next month or so, and that's a scary proposition. Let's go to the rest of the NFL in Week 4. Patriots falling at home to Carolina. Cause for concern for the Pats? Yeah, that defense is horrific. And that's an expensive defense you got there.
But and then even like the offense, and I know they have a lot of different ways that can hurt you out of the backfield. And Deion Lewis had a touchdown, which it's been a little bit for him. I mean, James White and Mike Gillislee are the top two guys in that backfield. But, I mean, Mike Gillislee, unbelievable with the first few touchdowns of his career with the Patriots. It came in game one.
Yeah.
And then he's been pretty good since, but he kind of took a step back. And you would expect the passing game to kind of pick up the reins then, even more so than they usually do. But Brandon Cooks really wasn't a factor in that game. So you would expect Tom Brady to roll with the punch a little bit better, I would say.
It's not Tom Brady's fault, though.
Oh, no, but
Tom Brady's numbers are phenomenal right now.
Absolutely.
It's and that's the crazy thing to say, because he's 40 years old. You would expect a 40-year-old to be on the downtick, but it's not the case. It's the rest of the offense around him that is just not playing well, and that's the issue.
But just that like Tom Brady, you just hear that name, you're expecting, the defense
You expect
is,
for everyone.
Yeah, you said the defense is underachieving. Brandon Cooks isn't getting in the offense, and Mike Gillislee this time around, not as much as you would expect, but that he would overcome that because he's Tom Brady. And he can't do everything.
So the top two teams, or we thought were going to be the top two teams in the AFC East, the Patriots and the Dolphins, are now the bottom two, depending on how you stack the AFC East standings. The Dolphins are 1-2. They get blanked by the Saints at home. Jay Cutler looked disinterested during the Wildcat play that went viral. It was spectacular. He didn't even move. The hands didn't even move from the hips. It was phenomenal. I just love it.
Mean mugging.
He was. This is going to be a common opponent for the Dolphins and the Bills. The Saints are. The offense for the Saints isn't... It's not what it used to be because Brandon Cooks isn't on that team anymore, but it's still a potent offense again because of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because, again, he's the quarterback. But that defense there is atrocious.
Yeah.
And for the Dolphins not to be able to do anything is a scary sign.
And Jay Ajayi, you're expecting him to go off in that game, did very little, but coming to the season, even with Jay Cutler, really, whoever you're going to put in there is going to be fine because look at what they have. Devontae Parker. They just have so many different options you go to. They have Kenny Stills now. Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Jay Ajayi coming out of the backfield. Doesn't matter.
Again,
doesn't matter who's throwing.
That's a good-looking offense.
Yeah.
You would think on paper. All right, let's go to the biggest surprise because I think we're only 4 weeks into this, but there's some really big surprises. Rams sit at 3-1. The Bills obviously 3-1 as well, which is I think a massive surprise. The Giants are 0-4. There are a few people that had these guys picked as possibly a Super Bowl contender, and they haven't won a game. The Jets are 2-2. I would add Washington into the mix as we're recording the show. Washington up 10-0 on Kansas City. If Washington pulls the victory out on the road in Kansas City against a team that everyone's like, man, everyone concedes that Kansas City might be the best team in the league at this point, or at least in the top 5. Washington would be a surprise at 3-1. Who's your biggest surprise, though?
I don't like to get negative because there's some very good positive ones on here, but it might have to be the Giants because you would expect, and I keep saying, you're expecting a lot more, and I'm throwing out names, but it has to be done again for the Giants. They went with, not Rashad Jennings, but they sticking with a young guy in Paul Perkins, but at the end of last year when Rashad Jennings couldn't play, Paul Perkins had some good moments.
Yeah.
And he has been atrocious this year. Now, good for them. They almost beat a very good Tampa Bay Buccaneers team on the road. Wayne Gallman Jr., as a rookie, looked pretty good. So maybe he'll be able to have the Paul Perkins role that he did last year. But they would go out and get Brandon Marshall. I mentioned on the Friday show that they have a top 5 passing defense behind Landon Collins. They have that unbelievable Olivier Vernon and Snacks Harrison, JPP-led defensive line. So they have all this stuff on paper. But like you mentioned, that's why a lot of people thought they could get deep in the postseason. But 0-4.
Yeah. Because their offensive line is atrocious.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They went out and added the wide receiver and Brandon Marshall and Ingram in the tight end as that shiny new pass-catching tight end, but the offensive line has been
He's
brutal.
so shiny.
I would say the Rams are not a surprise to me. Maybe 3 wins early on is, but again, Jared Goff is the number 1 overall pick, and everyone just dismissed him under Jeff Fisher, who is a defensive-minded coach.
I still do.
Everyone just dismissed him. He's a young kid in the league who didn't have a full season to work with, who's now got his feet wet a little bit, and with time comes experience, and with experience, I think you get better at things. So that's not a surprise to me. The Bills at 3-1 is a massive surprise to me, but the Jets at 2-2 might be the biggest surprise.
Everyone thought they could go over. They have 2 wins.
Yeah, and back-to-back wins.
And Jacksonville was looking pretty good coming to this week.
That OT game between the Jets and the Jags was the most Jets-Jags OT game of all time.
I just kept saying,
it was horrific.
They're going to tie.
Yeah.
They're absolutely going to tie.
You're not wrong there. It was just a bad look for Jacksonville. And for the Jets, you could be the second-place team in the division right now.
And Josh McCown, he's not really getting too many guys involved, but he had one huge week with Jermaine Kearse. He had one huge week with Robbie Anderson. Now you have McKenzie and Bilal Powell going for crazy touchdowns this week. They're getting big-time plays. They didn't think they were going to get any for the entire season.
It's crazy.
And they're getting a bunch of them per game, it seems like.
Dalvin Cook gone for the year. Mariota injured a hamstring. Chris Carter, significant leg injury. We had some big injuries in week 4. Jordan Matthews, Ramon Humber for the Bills. Obviously, we talked about guys that got injured. Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, both are going to be out a couple of weeks. Some big injuries going down. And if you're fantasy players, I mean, Mariota, Cook, even Carter, I would argue, has been picked up in recent weeks. Those are big fantasy impact guys. Julio, another one.
Yeah, so Chris Carson, he was in only because
I'm sorry,
Thomas
Carson. Why did I
Rawls.
put Chris Carter there, the wide receiver.
Because we might have.
Good find
Is he on the ESPN?
No, he's on.
Are you sure? Because I feel like we were watching
Was he?
pregame. I don't.
No,
where is he? Are we sure he's not on the ESPN coverage?
I thought he was on CB. No, he's on Fox now. He's on Fox now.
Oh, he moved.
He's bounced around. He was on ESPN, then went to
Oh, see, I'm
CBS,
getting
and then is
confused.
now with Fox. Yeah, he's been all over the place.
I'm getting confused. So,
Golly.
I mean, a lot of young guys, too. And then you have Ty Montgomery. He gets hurt in the Packers. They bring Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
Gets, within a few plays, sprains his knee. So now Aaron Jones, the rookie out of UTEP, is in there. You have Marcus Golden on the other side of the ball there for the Cardinals. So many this week.
Not
and
good.
It's so early on to have so many big-time ones. You had a couple in the preseason, and now within the first quarter of this season, the regular season.
Mitch Trubisky going to replace Mike Glennon for Week 5 of Monday Night Football, a week from the night we're recording the show. What do you think of the move?
I think it has to happen. I mean, you want to get the reins on this season early on, and they already dealing with so much, and this is why you can't put too much on Glennon. I mean, they had their two starters go out so early in this thing in terms of Kevin White and Cameron Meredith. So I know Kendall Wright wasn't – I mean, Kendall Wright was like third string with Victor Cruz in the preseason. You're like, wait, this guy was pretty good for the Titans recently.
Yeah.
So you have those kind of surprise pieces to a certain degree to be able to slot in. So it could be worse in terms of depth of the receiving core, but – we'll see. I mean, Tariq Cohen is going to help him a lot, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think it has to happen. I wanted to see Goff earlier last year, and I think they waited too long. Just see what the kid's got. You're not going anywhere, so what's the point?
And at least this early on, so it's two positives. You don't have too much to lose, like you said a second ago. And this early on, you might be able to turn around. Who knows?
All right, so the Sabres, we're going to move to hockey quickly. Sabres opening up against Montreal on Thursday. NHL opening on Wednesday. Sabres only winning one preseason game. Cause for concern?
And usually you don't like to look at preseason games, but when it's this far in one direction, in the negative direction, where I think the negative direction as opposed to the positive one, if you're winning a bunch of games in the preseason, it's where it actually has a role to it, you might want to raise an eyebrow.
I think that because this team has some roster spots they're still trying to figure out, and there's some guys, which happens every year.
And a lot of new faces.
Not a lot of new faces, but inevitably you get guys this year. It seems like they're really waiting to fill out this roster, that Phil Housley wants to see offensively what his guys are going to do. I'm surprised Gooley didn't end up making it. I didn't have the closest eye on camp, but that's a guy that a lot of people had slated as at least a third-line defenseman, if not on a second line of defense. I don't hate the fact that he's in Rochester because I think, kind of like Ristolainen, you get him some development down in the A, and that's only a good thing. It's only a good thing. If you don't absolutely need him this year, let him sit down. And you can always call him back up because now he's going to be under a pro contract. Then you can get him some reps up top for potential injury and stuff like that. That to me makes a lot of sense. I would say there is definite cause for concern, but the roster wasn't finalized. You're still waiting on to see how some guys perform, so it's not that huge.
So of this handful and a half of preseason games, the one, probably because of where I went to college, that I really watched the stuff at most, and granted it wasn't on a television broadcast, was when they played at Penn State. That was their one win.
Yeah.
And against the Penguins. And, man, they looked really, really good in terms of not only the stars doing what they are known to do, and you're Jack Eichel, and he wins it in overtime, but just the cohesiveness of it as well. I mean, getting Pominville involved in the passing. So, I mean, it's not like it was a void of highlights. So you can take away positives from it. It is only the preseason, but you would like to see a little bit more there.
Speaking of Palmer, who's the captain of this team?
It's tough because, Jack Eichel means so much, but he's still on the younger side. And do you give it to Pominville just because he's shown what he can do for a locker room?
Yeah, he's been the captain.
Yeah, before.
I think you absolutely give it to Pominville.
Because Eichel will have his time, and Pominville's not going to have that much time. Like, last hurrah, I think he's going to be really trying to get these guys in terms of growth.
That's it right there. Palmer doesn't have a whole lot of time left. He's the leadership guy. You don't bring him on here because he's, going to lead the team in every statistical category. That's just not the case. He's going to be a top 6 forward, but
in the league, Yeah. Positive thoughts.
No.
Sorry.
That's really good. He's not going to be, lighting the lamp every single night or every other night for this team, but he's going to bring the intangibles, and that's the idea. I think he can show Jack how to be a leader. Not that Brian Giunta couldn't, but they're in a different spot. Jack's a little older now. I think he has the attitude that he's got the chip to want to win even more, and that's the attitude, I would say. The person that this really screws is Ryan O'Reilly, because I think he has every characteristic you want in a captain, plain and simple. And not that it's unfortunate, because I think Jack deserves to be the captain eventually.
Oh, eventually, yeah.
But I'd love to see Ryan O'Reilly wear the C.
And at least get him some time, like
when
early
this team
on,
was struggling
then,
for the past 2 years, and he was clearly the best team on this player, or the best player on this team. He was always putting it on himself. He always took every mistake. Always said, "I've got to be better ahead of everything else. It's on me. This and that." I love that from Ryan O'Reilly. He screams leadership to me. I love his work ethic. I love his game. He's just a fun guy to watch.
And I would love Pominville getting the C, but at the same time, especially with all the points you just made, getting O'Reilly a year or two with the C before Eichel was really ready from an H perspective. I mean, obviously from productive play perspective, he's ready for it. I wouldn't mind seeing that, because that gets O'Reilly in. I don't know if he's ever going to get it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know how you take it away. Yeah, I don't know how you take it away, though. That's the thing. How do you take it away and give it to another guy that's been in the organization?
Yeah.
That's the difficult thing, though.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. And in theory, it's okay, but I think in reality, it may create some... You don't want to do anything in the room. And I think that's the hard part, is you don't want to create any controversy in the room.
That's the last place. I mean, with such a tightrope in terms of this team getting back to relevance, they really need to have things firing on all cylinders, and you don't want the room, quote unquote, to have problems with it.
Elsewhere around the league, Jaromir Jagr is back. My goodness, the mullet is back. He's going to play 1 year in Calgary. Signed $1 million ticket. Good for Yags.
And go, hey, at Sports by Bond, he had a great quote tweet or retweet, something like that.
I think I quote tweeted
about
it.
The Calgary Flames logo with a mullet on it. And my gosh, as someone...
With the Jagr mullet. Not just any mullet, but the Jagr mullet.
Yeah. As someone who has not been... He's still like the NHL plenty talking about me. I realize I'm being really vague. I liked it back in the day more.
Is that the fifth person you were talking in?
I liked it a little bit more back in the day, because I'm a Colorado Avalanche guy. So... in terms of my fandom recently, one of the things I remember the most in terms of looking at the NHL as a whole was just how awesomely random it was that Jaromir Jagr, at his age, with the Florida Panthers, was putting up the numbers he did recently. It's like, there's so many pieces of this that make it amazing. And he's still rocking just crazy duds as an oldster.
It's crazy how old he is. He's 45. He's 45 years old, and he's going to be playing pro hockey.
That's a crazy number to
That's
think about.
That's insane.
I keep saying crazy, but hey, guys, it's crazy.
He said a few years ago he wanted to play till he was 50. I mean, listen, he was still productive last year.
Exactly. He's been productive the last few years.
It's amazing to me. I don't know. I'm glad to see Jaromir Jagr back. I'm glad somebody gave him a chance. I'm glad somebody signed him to at least a 1-year deal. The league is more fun with Jaromir Jagr, and that's the point. It's not meant to be... It's not a gimmick, and it's not like the John Scott thing was a few years ago with the All-Star. He's still a talented player. He can't skate as well, obviously, and the unfortunate part is today's game's all about the young guys who can skate really, really fast both ways up and down the ice. But he's fun to watch, and that's the point. All right, little bump music in around the corner here, which is obviously always very quick because... TBD's still in search of some sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor the show, feel free to email us at tbdmailman@gmail.com.
Do it.
We're talking Bills. We're going to get back to the Bills discussion with Spencer German of 97.5, the team in Rochester. Spencer down in Atlanta for the game. Did he get Chick-fil-A? No, because it was closed, but he did watch the football game. We'll talk to him next on TBD.
You're you, I'm me. Hope you listened to the first part of the show to learn our names. We're back here, TBD.
It's been a while since you've been able to break that out.
I love it.
It's always for a new guest.
Yes.
That's the idea. So the new guest this week, pleased to be joined by Spencer German, and I want to make sure I get the numbers right because they recently changed. It was 105.5 in Rochester. Now it's 97.5, the team.
Yes, absolutely. You got it spot on there.
All right, excellent. Because I'm really bad with this. I'll butcher it, and then it'll be like, no, that's not it.
I know the feeling. I've been there. So.
Spencer, we appreciate the time, my man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be on. I'm glad you guys invited me on for the first time. Popping the cherry, I guess you could say. But
Very much so.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Spencer is the Bills beat reporter for 97.5 in Rochester. And that station goes all over the place, right? That's like the greater Rochester area is the idea.
Yeah, we just upgraded our transmitter, our signal a little bit, so it's stronger than it was when we were only on 105.5.
Okay.
So now we kind of branch out a little bit further and cover the entire Rochester area, which is nice.
Nice.
I've been there since what was it, the fall, I guess, of 2014. After I spent a year at RIT, I got started there. So it's been a great experience, great opportunity, and we're still kind of the new kids on the block, the youngins, if you will.
Yeah.
But trying to make a name for ourselves in a pretty good market. So
that's awesome. The way to do it. You could find him on Twitter at Spencito_, which is
I love it.
Phenomenal Twitter
love it.
handle.
My best friend in high school, who I'm still good friends with, he came up with that one day. I don't know how it started, but he was like, "Hey, Spencito," and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? That has a nice ring to it." So, and it kind of became the thing my friends called me. And then, in college it didn't stick as much, but I was like, you know what? I'm sticking with it.
It has character. It has
exactly.
It's got sauce. It's got a little stank on it. I like it. I like it.
All right, so Spencer was down in Atlanta for the Bills and the Falcons, and we started last week's guest. Who did we have on last week?
I think last week, Bills, we just talked about ourselves.
We did. All right, so it was 2 weeks ago.
Our guest was Syracuse football.
It was Syracuse football. You're right. It was Hawes last week. 2 weeks ago. We asked the question, and it's worth beginning at this point again. How are the Buffalo Bills 3-1 now?
I mean, I could go with the Sean McDermott answer, which would just be, well, we've won 3 games and we've lost 1, basically.
More coach speak.
I'm kidding. To be honest, I mean, I don't know that anybody projected this team to be a 3-1 at this point in the season, let alone be in first place in the AFC East. How about that? I mean,
crazy.
To have that be the case, if you had told Bills fans before the season started, by week 4, you guys will be 3-1 and in first place in the AFC East, no matter what happens the rest of the season, I think they would have just taken that. They would have said, oh, we have a shot at this. We actually might end this 17-year playoff drought. So the biggest thing I think to keep in mind is that we've seen this team get hot starts before and then kind of falter along and it falls to the wayside. So I think Bills fans are maybe going into this cautiously optimistic, but it really is incredible. And I think as long as the defense, as we saw yesterday, plays as well as it has these first 4 weeks, the sky is the limit for this group. There's 2 ways I always like to say to kind of go win a Super Bowl. The obvious one is get a franchise quarterback and have that guy stick with your team, have them kind of carry you the way. We see that with Tom Brady. We see that with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it with Ben Roethlisberger. You go on down the list. But when you don't have that franchise quarterback, the only other way we've seen a team win a Super Bowl is by having a great defense and average quarterback play, average offense play. I think that's what we're seeing with this team. But the defense is so darn good that it's working. And as long as they can play at that level and the offense can at least produce something, I really do think there's a possibility at where they sit right now and after some of the wins they've had. I mean, that was a statement win. I think this team really is for real after that. I have to give them props.
Now, you mentioned the defense. I mean, that is key. You said it a second ago. So yesterday, the group received a few fortunate bounces, unfortunate injuries on the Atlanta side in that receiving core. But how is this group able to stop that Falcons offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the guys during the week of practice leading up to the game, Lorenzo Alexander, I remember specifically talking about how one of the biggest things you have to do to stop Atlanta's offense is stop the play action. Last year, the Falcons led the league in terms of the number of plays they ran that were play action plays, 27%, I think it was. So they really thrive as much as the name Matt Ryan because he won the MVP last year, and Julio Jones is a dynamic and an incredible, really a freakishly talented receiver for his size. It really starts with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. Having 2 running backs and kind of switch in and out, hand the ball off to, and be able to do some things there, that creates opportunities down the field for Julio Jones, for Taylor Gabriel, for Mohamed Sanu. So I think it really starts there with them. And yes, the Falcons did put up 149 yards on the ground yesterday, so there was the opportunity there to maybe run some play action. But I don't ever feel like the Bills were really broken by that run. They didn't necessarily feel that, okay, they're running the ball up and down the field on us. It kind of came in little spurts. And then you factor in, like you said, the fact that Julio got hurt, Sanu got hurt, and that obviously helps the cause because they then knew, okay, well, they're going to get theirs in the passing game a little bit or in the run game a little bit with Freeman and Coleman, but we don't have to worry about it so much on the back end. I think that's kind of how they played it for the rest of the way. So, yes, the injuries, I think, had a hand in yesterday's game. Maybe it's a different result, but, hey, at the end of the day, a win is a win. Bills got it done. And like you guys said, it's a potent offense even without those guys. So the fact that they were able to slow them down. And what was funny, too, was you go to that last drive, Falcons, they're in the red zone, and Bills fans, sitting at home are sitting there watching and saying, "Oh, we know how this ends. we know how this ends." But it didn't, and I think that speaks just to how talented this defense is as well. In those situations in the past, maybe they don't get a stop there. This defense, they got the job done.
Yeah, they definitely did. Offensively, the Bills going back to that ground game was shady. He looked, I hate to say back, but he looked true to form, I guess yesterday is the best way to put it. Tyrod's chemistry with Charles Clay is through the roof at this point. He's leading this team in receiving yards. However, I thought they left some points on the board with a couple of field goals. Maybe it was a coaching decision. You can chalk it up to whatever you want. As good as the performance was yesterday, how can this group get better despite some of the key injuries now to guys like Matthews?
Yeah, I think it starts really with the fact that they don't really get their receivers involved. And that's going to become a little trickier, I think, as well with the fact that as we found out today from Sean McDermott's press conference, that Jordan Matthews is had to have thumb surgery, and he's not going to be playing next week. In terms of his status moving on after next week, it's kind of up in the air at this point. They don't know how long the recovery process is going to be. But yeah, I think the biggest thing you can circle is the passing game needs to be more dynamic, needs to get more guys involved. But I really like what they've done with getting Tyrod on these rollout plays where he's kind of able to see the field more. Because the biggest thing we've seen the last 3 years with Tyrod is when he stands in the pocket, he's useless as a quarterback. In terms of running, yeah, he can still make those plays. But when he's in the pocket trying to throw, he has trouble seeing over the offensive line. So to be able to get him rolling out, and we saw that yesterday, he had a great rollout play on that one throw to Charles Clay. He made another terrific play where he eluded some pressure and kind of booted around and make a nice throw as well. So there's some opportunities there when you get him rolling out to make those plays. But I find it interesting that it's constantly generally Clay and LaShawn McCoy, who are back-to-back. Those are the top the top receivers in terms of, I think, receptions. I think McCoy's leading, but yards, Clay's leading. So he's going to the guys that he's most familiar with, which speaks to, I think, how much the trade of Sammy Watkins and, losing a guy like Anquan Bolden, who could have been a nice piece, kind of play, and just this revamped receiving core. I think there is something to the fact that he lost those guys that he maybe had some chemistry with and knew a little bit better. Hey, they've made it work without having to use the receivers, but I don't know how long that's sustainable, and that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out and talk about, I think, this week at practice, and kind of get an idea of how the team feels about how sustainable that is moving forward. If you only really use Taylor with his legs, and then Charles Clay and LaShawn McCoy in the passing game.
Yeah.
This team currently without their starting left guard, a defensive end. You just mentioned Matthews a second ago. Now a starting linebacker on top of it that came down today. What's the biggest injury this team is facing at the moment?
That's a good question. I think the loss of Humber, which obviously he's another guy who today we found out had thumb surgery. That could be bigger, I think, than maybe it seems. And that was the story going into the season was this defense could be really good, and it has been, but there may be one or two injuries away from it completely falling apart because the depth isn't there.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of saw that yesterday. Really one of the first plays that I think it was Tanner Vallejo came in, and he misses a tackle in the backfield on Tevin Coleman that I think Humber, who's a little quicker and maybe makes that play and gets a stop, and Coleman breaks it off for a big gain. So there is the issue there of having the depth maybe come back to haunt them, or the lack of depth, I should say, coming back to haunt them. So I do think Humber, at least from this weekend, is the biggest blow. You mentioned, the defensive end, Shaq Lawson, was hurt. I don't know that his injury is going to be too serious moving forward. It sounds like he was kind of a game-time decision going into Sunday, so I think he might be back in there. But, yeah, and obviously Cordy Glenn's a big loss regardless. He's a great blindside tackle to have and has done some good things over the years. But again, they've kind of found a way to make it work without him. But having him back would be huge as well, not only for the passing game and protecting Tyrell, but also for the run game. Because if you can rely on Richie Incognito and Cordy Glenn on that side of the line, sending Shady that way is going to work in your favor. So
yeah, no doubt. It's crazy that we're week 4, we're heading to week 5 now, but the injuries just seem to be, to me, piling up, which is never a good sign.
Yeah,
so,
and it was across the NFL this week too.
Yeah.
And there was like Dalvin Cook's injury, Julio obviously leaving for the Falcons. There was so many injuries across the board this week. It was nuts.
Yeah. Fantasy teams are hurting for sure. All right, we touched on this a little bit in the first question, but a month ago this team appeared to be more interested, at least on paper, in the top overall pick or a very high draft pick. We don't ask this lightly because obviously we've seen hot starts before. Trent Edwards had this team at 3-1 at one point. So I don't want to tread lightly when using this, especially over the past 17 years. But does this look like a playoff team to you?
It's tough. I think, and I wrote a piece today, which I put out this morning, about how this team I think really is for real. So in that sense, I guess I have to concede that yes, the way they're playing right now, they do look like a playoff team. Now, could that change in an instant? Absolutely. Like you alluded to, Steven, they have had seasons where they start hot. 2011 comes to mind, where I think they were 5-2, and then the rails completely fell off. Same thing in 2011, in 2008, I think it was, where they were 5-1 and everything kind of fell apart from there. And 2011 was the year where, Fitzpatrick comes out, they get off to the good start of the season, they give him the big contract, and then they realized, oh, this was a mistake. He actually isn't our franchise quarterback.
Before the ink was dry.
Yeah, seriously. So I mean, it's interesting. I think the way they're playing now, and like I said, they will go as far as this defense takes them. If their defense continues to play this well and they can do just enough on offense, which is all they have to do, especially if the defense scores like they did yesterday.
Yeah.
I think this could be a playoff team. I really do. I don't know if that means winning the division necessarily. The Patriots are always a factor, and I know they're playing terrible right now. Their defense looks atrocious.
Yeah.
But you can always count on Belichick's teams to kind of get better as the season goes on. So I don't anticipate necessarily that the Patriots are gone and out of the Bills or off the Bills' back in terms of, I guess, where the way the standings are right now. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure, especially with Tom Brady, quarterback, who's owned the Bills over the years. So I don't know if it comes from winning the division or making a wild card spot, but they're right in the mix of things a quarter of the way through the season. I think the way they look right now, yes. But again, as we've seen, that can change in the blink of an eye.
So Twitter was bonkers following the Bills win. Obviously, they beat the Falcons on the road. Sports fans immediately turn to history with a big win like this. Where does this win stack up for you over the past 17 years of that drought?
This was when you guys sent me this question. This was the one I was really like thinking hard about. Like, what do I go back to over the last 17 years and find? The first one that came to mind for me was the 31-0 win over New England in 2003. Mm-hmm. Just because I don't know that fans back then realized how good the Patriots were going to kind of this reign that the Patriots are going to have back then.
Yeah.
But to kind of beat the Patriots in that fashion, a team that had just won the Super Bowl, and they'd obviously not plucked. I guess kind of plucked. They plucked Drew Bledsoe. I was going to say Drew Brees. Drew Bledsoe from the Patriots because they got that trade for him. So it was kind of like, we got your old quarterback and he's still balling. We're winning 31-0, taking on the big bad Patriots who just won the Super Bowl. So I think that was kind of a nice high point for Bills fans. But then I also went back and I found the Packers win in 2014, the 21-13 win.
Yes.
It was in December. That one comes to mind because it was a similar situation, a Packers team that you knew was very good, a game the Bills probably shouldn't have won, but they always seem to win one kind of weird game at home against a team that they probably shouldn't beat. And at that point in the season, that was their 8th win. So if winning that game, they were still very. I know they're always in the playoff hunt, but they were very much in the playoff hunt still. And then I remember the week after they went and lost to Oakland, and that was it. So
a bad Oakland team.
Right. And that was the thing, was that win kind of kept them not only in the hunt, but very much alive for a postseason berth. And then it kind of fell apart the next week. So that was kind of the one I think, even more than the 31-0 blowout against the Patriots, that I circled as, I think this is the same type of feeling. You beat a team you shouldn't have beaten. team that recently either went to a Super Bowl, played in a Super Bowl, has been very good over the few years, has a franchise quarterback, and you kind of took it to them. And I think the same type of vibe you got from that game is what you're getting from this in the aftermath of the Falcons win.
That 2014 was interesting because the thing I remember most about that game is the defense made Aaron Rodgers look so average.
Yeah.
And that's what really stood out to me, is just how well, and you go back to yesterday, not that Matt Ryan looked average, but you take away his top 2 threats, and he certainly did look average. He's throwing to guys that he clearly is not comfortable throwing the ball to. So that 2014 game is a really good comparison. Because I just remember the defense playing bonkers that year. For whatever reason, I remember cutting the highlights just thinking, man, Jim Schwartz was at his finest that year.
Oh, I love Jim Schwartz.
So, all right, let's look ahead because it's natural to, especially when the good vibes are flowing.
Yeah.
Weeks 4 through 8. I'm including Atlanta in this. I think it's probably the toughest stretch of games for this team, despite having the bye in week 6. So they're going at Cincinnati. You got to host Oakland, I think, at one point. It's a pretty crazy stretch. You're facing some good teams, some good quarterbacks. Week 5, the Bills going on the road as 3-point dogs as it opened up today on Monday, which I thought was interesting. One, do people doubt if this team is good? And 2, how do the Bills get the win in Cincinnati?
I'm shocked by the line. I really am.
I was
because
too.
I think I think after yesterday's win, and maybe Vegas is looking at it and saying, the Falcons were without 2 of their best receiving threats for the majority of this game, so chalk it up as they got a little bit lucky in this situation. But it's not like the Bengals has showed us anything to make us think that they should be 3-point favorites in this game with a 1-3 record. To me, it was mind-boggling. At the very least, maybe a 1-point favorite because they're at home. But 3, to me, I was kind of like, okay, that's pushing it, I think. But, this is definitely this middle of the schedule because, like we said, we've seen the Bills get off to hot starts. It's going to be interesting. If they get a win in this game, you enter the bye at 4-1. And I don't think any fan's going to be complaining about that at all. You're in a great position to kind of go the rest of the way, recoup at the bye, get healthy, and then try to make a run in a push towards the playoffs through late October all the way through the season. But, again, you have some tough opponents in there. Tampa Bay seems to be pretty for real right now. You have an Oakland team that may be underperforming a bit. They're only 2-2, but they lose a game in the division, which is always a tough division, it seems, in the AFC West yesterday. But they're still going to be a force to be reckoned with Derek Carr, quarterback, and the weapons that they have. You assume the Jets game is a win, although for whatever reason, the tanking Jets all of a sudden right in the mix of the division for whatever reason. Who saw that coming?
Nobody.
As much as nobody saw the Bills being 3-1 and leading the division, nobody saw the Jets being 2-2 and winning 2 in a row. That was crazy to me. And then the Saints game is also interesting just because with New Orleans, their defense is not very good, but their offense can be explosive. So that's going to be another – maybe that's the next one you really circle outside of the Oakland game you could throw in the mix where you see a real potent offense going against this defense. So I think you're spot on. This next stretch of the schedule, while maybe they surpass the early tough portion with Denver and Carolina, Denver, and Atlanta all in a row, and they come out of it 3-1 as a team. And the big question going into the Cincy game is going to kind of be, are they going to take this team lightly now that they're 3-1? What's the vibe? And I don't think Sean McDermott's going to have them allow them to do that, but it's going to be interesting. Like you said, to get a win in Cincy, the biggest thing is Andy Dalton's terrible under pressure. And as we've seen with this defense, they can create a lot of pressure. So if they're able to get pressure on Andy Dalton, I think they'll be okay. The Bengals' pass defense has actually been pretty good this year, so that sort of plays into the Bills' hand because they're not going to probably look to air it out a ton anyway. They'd rather run the football. But if they can get the running game going, as we've seen, I think that'll open up some opportunities for Tyrod, continue to get him on those rollout plays. And if the defense can create pressure on Andy Dalton, I think they'll be good to go. But by the way, through this whole conversation, how frustrating must it be to think back to the last 2 years, realize how good the defense is playing this year, and think back to the last 2 years and just say, why did we ever bring in Rex Ryan? He screwed up the defense.
Yeah.
You go back to Marone's days, and the defense was just as good as it is right now. And then the only thing that makes sense that was in that time period that changed was Rex Ryan was the head coach, and now the defense is good again. It's unbelievable. That's the most frustrating thing I think for Bills fans is they basically wasted 2 years trying to play a 3-4 defense. And it was actually when they played the Broncos last week, Vance Joseph on a conference call had this great quote, and I kind of said, I think I tweeted out, Rex could learn something from Vance Joseph because he said he's a 4-3 coach like McDermott, but he said when he came to Denver, he saw that the 3-4 was working so well in Denver with the personnel that they had, so he stuck with the 3-4. And he said, I wanted to make I didn't want to make my players fit my scheme. I wanted to make I wanted the scheme to fit the players.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's oh man, it's crazy.
It's a
it
good
really
one.
is.
Yeah, it is.
So getting away from Bills and football in general for a second now, it's the Final Five. Number 1, what's your alma mater?
John Carroll University, which is on the east side of Cleveland.
Nice.
Graduated in 2013. Proud blue streak. Our football team this year, we came into the year ranked in the top 10, but lost a couple games there. So last year they beat Mount and Wisconsin Whitewater. So I'll hang my hat on that for at least another year.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's not easy to do. Mount Union is a juggernaut. I saw them when I was in college. I saw them literally run through St. John Fisher in 1 quarter. It was over.
Yeah,
I'd turn the camera off after that. I was
they're in John Carroll's conference, so they play every single year.
Oy vey. I would not.
I think last year when John Carroll beat him was like the first time since like 2008 they lost an interconference game or something. It was,
oh my God.
It was ridiculous.
That's insane.
And then Whitewater's a big name too.
Yeah,
they recently had Lance Leopold went to UB. That's quite the jump, and it's a beautiful thing. Well, he didn't do that well, but but hey, I mean those are two big teams to win.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Spencer German of 97.5, the team. What is your secret talent?
Man, you guys, you prepped me with these, and I've been stewing on this one. Oh man, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I guess I'm pretty good at MLB The Show on PS4.
It's good enough for me.
That's video games. That's fine.
I kind of put my not even all video games, mostly just sports video games. Like play me in Call of Duty and you'll school me any day. So, but the nice thing is what I try to be talented is this field. So for me, I'm using my I guess it's not a secret, but I'm using my talent that I want to improve the most every single day.
There you go.
It's good. Number 3, best Halloween costume of your life so far.
This one's easy for me. When I was a kid, my mom, I don't know, I think she made it. And I went as Peter Pan, and my older sister went as Tinkerbell.
Nice.
So I always remember, we'll have people over, flip through the family photo album, and people will see that picture, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are so adorable." But I think that was probably when I think back to my favorite costumes when I was a kid. That was definitely one of them. I always wanted in college to have a really creative idea. And all my friends came up with great ones, and I never had anything good, ever. or I would think of it way too late. Oh, this would have been a great idea at Halloween.
Yeah.
Too late.
It happens. It happens. All right, favorite beer, sir?
I'm kind of it depends on the season, I guess. I guess we're still kind of, with the way the weather's been, in summer season. So I'm still kind of feeling summer shandy right now.
Okay.
That's still my one of my top ones. Once we get into this fall, I drink a lot of Angry Orchard. You can't go wrong with Blue Moon. Yingling's up there for me as well. What are your guys' favorite beer? That's the real question.
Oh, I am not picky.
Natty. That's a natty light.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, that is
favorite
definitely
beer. I'm not picky. Well. Typically, we go to the guest for a title of the episode, but I think Travis may have just stolen it from everyone with that one.
Just a dumpster.
I'll drink
when it comes to booze, man.
I'll drink any Saranac beer, but my favorite one is their pumpkin ale, by far. And it's we discussed this on the last episode. Travis is not a pumpkin guy.
I'm not.
I love everything pumpkin.
Pumpkin guy?
Dang, really?
That's
you
the
don't
other
pumpkin pie.
No, I don't. I'm Apple. I don't know. It freaks me out. I don't know.
Man, I just had a pumpkin pie yogurt this morning, dude.
Spectacular.
But Oikos or other yogurt brands? I don't know. All right. After the yogurt tangent, last one. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter, as I believe Steven mentioned earlier, at Spencito_. For any of my Bills stories that I post up and write for the website, our station's website is theteam.fm. Yeah, I mean, those are the two things I would say I probably use the most, doing different content for them, whether it's the writing stuff, the videos, a bunch of different things. So appreciate you guys checking me out. And obviously for you guys, appreciate you guys inviting me on the show.
Hey, anytime. It's
Yeah,
our
right
pleasure,
back
my
at
man.
you.
You
Thank
guys
you.
do great stuff with that. It's more than just the radio show stuff, which is awesome. And it's honestly, it's not even the future. It's the now. It's what you have to be. So
Absolutely.
Hey, we get it. It's the same thing with us. So Spencer German of 97.5 The Team in Rochester. We appreciate the time, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you guys again. Much appreciated. Again, anytime you need me, give me a holler. I'm definitely willing to come on.
Hey,
Thank you.
We'll do, my man. All right, around the bump music, as we mentioned, and I'm probably going to mention this in every block, because this is just how it goes. A very guest-heavy show.
I love it.
Spencer just the first. Around the corner, Nate Rowan, another Rochester guy. We were Rochester heavy today. Of the Rochester Red Wings,
Rock heavy.
Director of Communications for the Red Wings. We're going to talk some baseball because, hey, it's that time of the year. TBD rolling on.
What a time in sports we're in. Baseball, football, hockey's coming up. So snuggle in and listen here on TBD.
Snuggle in?
Snuggle in.
Okay.
Hey, cozy up.
I guess so.
Just let it happen.
Listen, it's not going to feel like it for
Let
the
it
next
happen.
few days in
Let it
upstate New York.
happen.
Okay, all right. I apologize. We're time to talk some baseball, as we alluded to in the A block, bringing on a returning FOTS now. Nate Rowan, the Director of Communications for the Rochester Red Wings, and I forgot to get Nate's Twitter handle, so this was a bad move by me. Nate, what's the Twitter handle?
At NJ Rowan, ROWAN. You guys don't really want to follow me, though, outside of baseball season, because all I do is complain about NFL officiating, and it's seriously, it's such a tired act that I need new material, and I just can't come up with new stuff.
But the thing is, they keep giving you these zebras.
That's true.
Keep giving you material. So
every week, I gotta find a new act. I gotta find a new hobby, because nationally televised NFL games are just, my stress level goes way up.
Now, you're originally from Minnesota, correct?
Right.
So are you a Vikings fan, like through and through?
Big Vikings fan. Yesterday was a huge bummer.
Yeah.
I was actually back in Minnesota at a bar watching it with some fellow Vikings fans. They took it a lot tougher than I did, though.
Man.
It's a tough loss, because he had really, what we thought was going to be a pretty deep backfield, he had taken the reins.
Yeah,
to that running
Latavius.
back
I mean,
position.
he's done it before. We'll see if he can do it again. What did it with the Raiders?
Right.
It's not
Right.
surprising to any Minnesota fans that a promising start to the season is now, it's like, all right, we're limping to the finish line after week 3.
Yeah.
Or week 4, whatever we're at.
Not good. Not good.
Ugh.
Vikings and knee problems, just not good.
Eesh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go there.
All good.
I'm just getting a stare from Nate.
Oh, no.
It's the nice Minnesota look, but really in the back of his mind, he's like, I just want to rip his head off.
You just
That's
made
all
my
right.
list.
That's all right. Exactly. All right.
Well, I personally couldn't do it. I have to hire somebody. Steven,
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, hey. Just
that's a
Rodrigo.
good thing, because you can insult me on here, and I literally can't do anything myself.
No, that's not
Like,
true. Come on now.
I have to fire somebody else. I have to hire somebody else.
Duly noted. But as I had on the notes here, and at Traps Mac can attest to this, all around good dude
Yes.
is the title. Is part of
I
the title.
agree.
That's what I had on there. So
We are in
Well,
agreement.
I very rarely am I speechless. I don't know what to say back.
all right, let's move to baseball then. 2017 playoffs are here for the major leagues. Let's look back for a second though at what the regular season. What a regular season it was, and really it was so many storylines.
So many.
From the start of it to the end of it. What are the few things you'll remember from this regular season the most, Nate?
Cleveland's winning streak, first off. And honestly, at about the same time as their winning streak was the Dodgers' losing streak, or that skid that they were in. And they went from being a team that people were like, all right, they're going to break the win percentage record. Like, they were going to shatter all sorts of records and stuff. And then they couldn't buy a win. Didn't matter who they played, didn't matter who was pitching. But I'll remember the Indians' win streak just because. And I probably would have said this back in 2002, 2003 when the A's had their long winning streak. Like, it just seems like in this day and age, it's not a record that is going to be broken.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do. Yeah, that's
seriously,
really hard to do.
in baseball, that is incredible to win 22 consecutive games. And then they lost a game, and then they won like 4, 5, 6 after that. It was incredible because they didn't give up any runs. So if you don't give up any runs, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
But just the way that they were pounding teams, they were beating teams like an average score of like 7 or 8 to like 3 or 2. Not if a team got 3 runs, it was shocking.
They were getting more home
everybody that
runs.
they threw out there was pitching well. It was seriously, it was an incredible run, and probably a run that we won't see for a while.
Right. I think there was a few games where they had more home runs than the other team had runs.
Yeah, it was all encompassing.
Yeah, crazy.
All facets.
Everything's clicking at that point.
And different guys. It wasn't like, hey, one guy got hot. Like Giancarlo Stanton is another storyline from the season, like chasing 60, because that's like the 60 mark is like, you get to 60 and people remember you forever. So he ended with 59, but I'll remember that. But like if Giancarlo Stanton didn't homer, the Marlins probably didn't score. So like with the Indians, they had Lindor and they had Jose Ramirez and they had Jay Bruce and they had all these guys that somebody different every single night. And honestly, that's what you need in baseball.
Yeah.
So sticking with the
this time of year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So sticking with the regular season, this time around the MLB saw a record number of regular season home runs hit. Now, do you think that feat will help the sport legitimately move away from the dark cloud of the steroid era and towards maybe sports fans fully digging the long ball again?
I would say that just like to touch on the steroid issue thing, I think that, to be honest with you, at the time, I don't think people really cared. And to be honest with you, MLB has a duty to keep their players protected, and steroids can do a lot of bad things to a person's body, maybe not right away, but in the long term, they can have really negative effects on the human body. But to be honest with you, I don't care if people are in the steroid era, everybody was using it.
Yeah.
It's not like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds were the only 2 guys that were doing steroids, or Jose Canseco. Those 3 were doing steroids, and they were the only 3. I mean, they were competing with guys that were also using steroids. So I guess I'm more of the opinion was, as long as it's a level playing field, I'm okay with whatever they want to do. But I think the one thing that fans have shown is that they want runs to be scored. And so part of me thinks that they've tried to do things to bump up the scoring. And there's been some talk like the baseball, something's up with the baseball where the baseball is tighter wound, so the ball jumps a little bit more. Fans want to see home runs, and not just like weak home runs that you see at Yankee Stadium down right field. They want to see the mammoth 480 foot home runs that Aaron Judge hits.
Yeah.
Up into the upper deck. So the game has gotten, the Indians are where they're at because of their pitching. And so there's been so many good teams when it comes to pitching that I don't want to start a conspiracy here on this
Feel
podcast.
Free though.
But,
it could be good for ratings.
But it's amazing when a guy like Francisco Lindor, who's a great player, great hitter. In fact, last time you guys had me on, I think I talked about him being one of my favorite young guys in the game. But when he hits over 30 home runs, and he's never had that kind of power in his entire career, I guess it could be luck. But part of me is like, all right, what else is going on here?
Yeah, that's the problem. That steroids taints that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think like what Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton are doing is great. What you guys would not have been talking about the Marlins. The sports world would not have talked about the Marlins if it wouldn't have been for Stanton chasing 60. Yeah. So it's good that those type of teams, when they're out of it, can stay relevant in the conversation because of guys. And there's a lot of teams that are just out of it right away, and they don't have any of that sort of milestone chasing, and it's just that people forget about them.
Yeah, outside of the sal of that organization, you wouldn't care if Stan was on that team. So it's an interesting point. All right, so Nate, you work for the Twins organization. Minnesota Group is the first MLB team to make the playoffs after losing 100 games the year prior. How was that team able to get it done? How did they make that massive jump from losers to playoff contenders here and into the playoffs?
So I think they had a really young lineup specifically, and believe it or not, they finished the regular season 7th in Major League Baseball in runs scored.
No kidding.
Which if you talk to anybody that casually follows the game, I don't think they would tag Minnesota as a juggernaut offense.
No.
They finished 4th in the American League in runs, behind the Astros, they scored all sorts of runs, especially early in the season. But they led the American League in runs after the All-Star break, and they finished 2nd in Major League Baseball behind the Cubs after the All-Star break in runs scored. The offense was clicking, which, by the way, I know I saw the look on your guys' face. That's surprising.
It's good audio.
I looked it up, and it is remarkable what they've done in the second half. And if you look at it, I think they have 4 guys that have over 20 home runs. They have 6 guys that have over 15 home runs. And I think they have 7 guys with 13 or more home runs. I mean, it's totally spread out. Their lineup has gotten contributions from everybody. You know, Buxton for a while broke out, and he went from about $180 to up near 260, 270. I think he finished near 255 or something like that. But their young guys all broke out kind of at the same time. You know, Buxton and Polanco broke out at the same time. Eddie Rosario's had an awesome year. Brian Dozier has done, I think, all that they could have asked of him. A guy that, many talked about possibly being traded in the offseason. And, they get contributions from different people. I mean, Joe Mauer batted over 300, I think, for the first time since 2011.
Wow.
They just have so many different guys, and it's like 1 through 9. 1 through 9, it seems like there's not a part in their order where it's like, you know what? They're not going to score a run this inning, or they don't have a chance to score runs. They didn't really pitch it that great. They finished, I think, 19th in Major League Baseball in team ERA. The top 7 ERA teams in Major League Baseball this year are playoff teams. The 3 that were not are Houston, Colorado, and Minnesota. So generally, they say in the postseason, pitching wins. So the Twins are going to have to get some pitching if they're going to win the wild card game on Tuesday. But if they advance, they're going to have to get contributions from some guys that haven't turned in great seasons necessarily. But I mean, overall, the team is where it's at because of its offense and the fact that it's been spread out. The production's been from multiple different sources, and it's a big reason why they went from 103 losses to the postseason. It's really a remarkable turnaround. And nobody had them anywhere close to the postseason.
Now, what kind of Rochester Red Wings connections does this current Twin side have?
Okay, well, I looked at the roster. The last day of the season, they had 35 guys on the active roster. So that's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Only 4 guys of those 35 did not appear with the Red Wings. Have not appeared with the Red Wings in their careers. 19 of those played with Rochester this season.
Wow.
The 4 guys that did not appear with Rochester this year, or that haven't appeared with Rochester, Matt Belisle, Gabriel Moya, who they traded for at the trade deadline, Jason Castro, who they just signed in the offseason, and Chris Jimenez, who they just signed in the offseason. So by and large, the team is made up of what they called homegrown players. Guys that were drafted or signed by the Twins and have kind of grown up, matured, and worked through the system. A lot of the guys that were with the Red Wings this year are having not just impacts with the Twins, but major impacts. I mean, the bullpen, two of the maybe 3 or 4 most relied upon arms in the bullpen are Trevor Hildenberger and Alan Buznitz, and they were the 2 better relievers for the Red Wings this year. And for a while, it was like, all right, what do these guys have to do to get called up? Eventually they did, and they haven't looked back. They've pitched great for the Twins. They pitched great for Rochester, but a lot of connections. In fact, Aaron Hicks is on the Yankees, and he was a former Red Wing and was actually on the opening day roster in 2015. So a lot of Red Wings connections in the wild card game on Tuesday.
That's good. All right, let's pick the wild card game then. Who do you got in the AL? Who do you got in the NL?
Oh, I'm kind of torn in the AL because if you look at the pitching matchup, the starting pitching advantage I think, has to go to Irvin Santana. Mm-hmm. And the reason that a lot of people haven't really given the Twins a whole lot of chance in this game is because of their inexperience. But if you look at the Yankees, they don't have a whole lot of experience either, especially their pitchers. Aroldis Chapman has been in the postseason before. Yep. David Robertson's been in the postseason before. But otherwise, none of those guys have pitched in meaningful postseason games. Like Betances has pitched in one game. I think he pitched in the wild card game a couple years ago. And Luis Severino's making his first postseason start. A lot of those guys in the lineup, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, Greg Bird, those kind of guys are playing in their first postseason games, along with most of the players in the Twins lineup. So, the thing is with the postseason, they don't give these starters a long leash. And the sooner that the Yankees go to their bullpen, I think the better it is for them. If the Yankees score some early runs, I think the Twins are in trouble. Not because I don't think they can come back, but the Yankees bullpen is just, if they pitch the way that they are capable of pitching and the way that they've pitched this year, it's trouble. Okay. I looked up before we came on here, and I looked at the records of the teams when they lead after certain points in the game. So after the 5th, after the 6th, after the 7th, and so forth.
This is really deep stuff, by the way.
I like it.
And if you can believe it, the Yankees are only 3 games better than the Twins when leading after 6 innings.
Huh.
Now you think about that, and you're like, you know what? The Yankees bullpen on paper is way better than the Twins.
Right.
Just given the names, they have David Robertson pitches like the last time the Twins were in town, he was in there in the 4th inning. That's the luxury.
Crazy.
And the Indians kind of started that last year with Andrew Miller. Their quote unquote their closer coming in the 6th and the 7th. I mean, you completely shorten the game when that happens. But the Yankees are 75-10 when they lead after 6 innings.
Wow.
The Twins are 72-13. I mean, those are so the big thing is getting a lead. And
so realistically,
it's cliche to say that.
Yeah, this game on paper seems like way better than what it's being billed for.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you. In one game in baseball, I've seen so much stuff, crazy, stupid stuff happen.
Yeah.
I was in Kansas City with the Royals in 2014 when they rallied to beat John Lester and the A's. They were down 7-3 in the 8th inning.
Gee.
In that game, and
That's
John Lester was
crazy.
pitching out of his mind. The Royals started stealing bases at a point in the game when you're like, you don't want to give up any outs on the base paths.
Mm-hmm.
They rallied to tie the game in the 9th with a run. I think they scored 3 runs in the 8th, and they scored 1 run in the 9th to tie it, and then Salvador Perez won it on a walk-off, and then they made it to the 7th game of the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 6 outs away from being completely done, and they had a chance. They had Alex Gordon on third base 90 feet away with a chance to tie the Game 7 against Bumgarner. I mean, baseball is so funny in that one small moment can completely shift a game.
Yeah.
So I will say that if the Twins can take an early lead, I like their chances. But if the Yankees have a lead in, let's say, the 5th, there's big trouble brewing for the Twins. Right. On the National League side, I like Arizona. I think the pitching matchup favors the Diamondbacks with Zach Greinke pitching. But Colorado's offense has proven that they can score a lot of runs. We'll see if they can do it outside of Coors Field, and that's kind of been their, they rely on the home field advantage quite a bit, and but they have the NL batting champ Charlie Blackmon and Nolan Arenado. I think drove in over 130 runs this year. So I mean, that matchup could go either way. And an interesting side note with that one is that Pat Neshek story about the autograph. Mm-hmm. You guys talk about that on the podcast at all?
We didn't yet, but
Not yet.
That was the one where one of the fellow players asked him for an autograph, right?
Yeah, so Pat Neshek is a former Red Wing and a former
Okay.
Twins reliever, kind of a sidearm, quirky delivery. He's an autograph collector.
Okay.
And so at the
All right.
All-Star game,
Right.
he wanted Zach Greinke to sign. There was a card with league leaders on it. I think Adam Wainwright was on it and Clayton Kershaw was on it. And Greinke refused to sign it, and Pat Neshek wrote on like an autograph forum, just like how much he disliked Greinke, and he used some words that I can't really say on the podcast.
Yeah, it was bad.
But,
I heard the story. It was bad.
but,
It really was.
So that's Greinke's starting in that game, and Neshek could pitch in that game, and
That'll be
there were some
interesting.
words back and forth even after it.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting storyline with that game. Although they won't face each other, but
right.
That's still it made me laugh just because it's like that's
the
type of thing you hear from like the people who wait outside like our gates.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like this guy didn't sign for me, and it's like, well, I can't make the guy sign for you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and
right.
They, you know. But anyway.
Very interesting.
Yeah, we'll see.
You got the next one, Trebs.
Oh no! You looked at me like you wanted to say something.
No, sorry.
So expanding into the entire MLB postseason now, which teams do you think are most equipped to make it out of the AL and the NL? We'll leave World Series out of it, but in terms of who wins that, who do you think gets there, though?
I would say Cleveland in the American League is best suited for a run. I was down there. I saw them when the Twins were down there last week. They are just so solid. Their starting pitching is really, really good. Their bullpen is arguably the best. I think if the Yankees do what they're supposed to, they could make a case for the best bullpen. But I think those two are clearly above everybody else. And at the end of the day, the bullpen is what matters now in the postseason. You know, I mean, teams win these close games, and it comes down to which teams can get outs from their bullpens. And Cleveland's best equipped there. In the National League, if you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said, I don't know how you pick against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
You know, that those matchups are going to be really interesting, whether it's Arizona or Colorado against Los Angeles and Washington and Chicago. You know, I think I probably would give an edge to the Cubs just because they've been there and they've kind of gone through it. But it wouldn't shock me if the Nationals made it. You know, I think that they've been kind of snake bitten in the past couple of years in the postseason, and
let's put it lightly.
You know, I think the X factor, I think with that is, you know, what Bryce Harper 100% healthy? Is he the guy that you know, is touted as, you know, the superstar of Major League Baseball and kind of the face of the game or whatever? And you know, if he's healthy, I like the Nationals' chances. But honestly, I think any of those 5 teams in the National League can win it. I think realistically, in the American League, Cleveland and Houston are probably the 2 best bets. The Red Sox just aren't playing very well right now, and Houston scores a ton of runs, and Boston hasn't exactly kept teams off the board down the stretch. So we'll see.
It's going to be. I'm really interested in the Cubs and Nats series.
Yeah,
I want to see if the Cubs can, not the Cubs, the Nats can finally like get over the hump. And it's the worst team to do it against in the defending World Series champions. But
right,
I mean, that's if you want to be a champion, you got to beat the best guys, and here's your best test. So
and it's former Cubs manager Dusty Baker against the Cubs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of motivation there. The defending champs. I mean, there's always a target, you know, on your backs. I mean, it's going to come down to, you know, whether Max Scherzer can. I mean, if he pitches 2 games, I like their chances.
Yeah.
But
the hamstring is going to be the issue if he can get back in time. So yeah,
right.
No doubt. Nate Rowan, you can find him at NJ Rowan on Twitter. The director of communications for the Rochester Red Wings and all-around good guy. Nate, we appreciate the insight and the time, my man. That was awesome.
Of course. There's no talent. There's no like rapid fire questions or anything.
No, we already did those with you. You're a recurring FOTS.
Awesome.
We know all about you.
That's
We've completely
awesome.
stalked your life, but that's all right.
That's awesome, because if I needed another talent, I don't have one. I'm not any good at anything else.
You have bestowed the Emo voice upon us. We're good. Like, that suffices.
It does. It definitely does. Nate,
awesome. Well, thanks for having
it.
me, guys. Like, I really appreciate it, and I want the postseason to go on as long as possible. So I'm rooting for as many long series as I can. Unless the Twins are playing, then let's just sweep it, get it over with, so I don't have to sweat it.
No bias whatsoever. Hey, Nate, we appreciate it, my man.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Around the Bump Music, a guest-laden show today. From Nate to our female correspondent, Ashleigh Carter, it's fall date destinations or ideas.
Yeah.
Carter is a female, so where would she like to be taken out? We'll get a sense of that after this, plus a leg story that you're not going to want to miss because Travis Matt picked this one out. TBD rolling on.
Fall. We're here on fall. And hey, it's the D Block, TBD. Listen in. It's a good time of the year. That's all I got.
You got the flannel out for fall, by the way.
Oh, it's not intentional whatsoever.
I just realized that.
Next up in the queue?
Golly, next up in the queue. Do you really have just like a list of things that you...
It's like I just have installed in my place, one of those laundry
Is
wheels.
it a rotating one,
is.
just like they have at the...
You're laughing. I'm not laughing. No, I was kidding. I don't.
That would be awesome, though. That would be really sweet. He just hits the button and whatever.
Like, wow,
pops
my
up.
wardrobe is really small. I'm not filling out any of these.
That's every woman's dream.
I know, right?
It's true.
Mariah Carey has that, right? MTV Cribs. She's
Probably.
got crazy big.
Cher from Clueless has it. So.
Oy vey. All right, the voice, obviously, when it's a female, it is Ashleigh Carter joining us, the female correspondent.
The only girl you can get on this show.
That's true. You're the only one we've convinced. We've tricked her this far. All right, Carter. We bring you on to talk about all female stuff, and nice. The last segment we did with Carter, which was like a series, was really popular. By the way, even
Was
at
it?
Sports by Mom liked it.
It's a trifecta.
Sports by Mom.
So
Yeah.
she enjoyed it.
That's his mother.
Good, I'm glad. Everyone loves nostalgia. Everyone loves that.
Everybody
It does. It's big.
It is. It's
Yeah.
wildly popular.
Yeah.
So now that it's fall, and chicks love fall because it's pumpkin and it's Han Solo boots and it's whatever.
Queen.
Oh, I forgot about Han Solo boots.
It's
And
Han
the
Solo
vest.
in the
Don't forget
vest,
the vest.
with a flannel shirt like yourself, like you get the
Yeah.
button up going, Trav. So it's the same thing. So we figured let's talk about fall dates, and we're gonna run through them. You give us a yes or no and why you either like it or why you don't like it, or if you've been on it and have a cool story.
Okay.
We'll roll with it. All right, the first.
Hit me.
All right, first one. Not literally. Well, I'm just pointing it out.
Hey, gotta be safe.
We're against
Hey, we
hitting
love
women on this
women
show.
here.
We're pro women on this show. All right. Number one, apple picking.
Oh my god. Hate it.
Hate it. Why?
Because whenever I've gone apple picking, it hasn't really been fall weather quite yet. It's always been so
warm.
hot. And like you want to go apple picking, you want to wear your flannel like Trabs has on right now. And so you're just like sweating and like you're doing a lot of work when like I literally can go to Wegmans and get apples. Like I really don't care that much.
Well, yeah. Well, you mentioned it's the
don't.
weather. It's like there's
Yeah.
only applesauce in those trees. It's all smooshy.
I know. I gotta get up on there, like on a ladder, like
Yeah.
a step stool. Like even me, like my
No,
giant.
you don't have to. You got the height, Carter.
I got that height.
Well, it's like even if it's actual fall weather, you're still like there's
Yeah.
like weird apples on the ground. That's like the rejects, and
Yeah.
you're hitting them with your shoes, and it just
I know.
it's
And there's a bunch of kids there. Like I don't,
yeah.
if I'm gonna go apple picking, I'm gonna go somewhere where there's other things to do, aka drink. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty. Number 2, hike / camp.
ooh, yes, I like that one.
Very nice.
Have you
Because
ever?
again, what?
I was just saying, have you done it? Have you done like a fall hike or a camp?
I've camped in the fall before. It was a few years ago. But it was with like an ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well,
We were already dating, but anywho. But the hike, I love the hike idea because on the flip side, the other part of fall is that perfect weather. That's like when
true.
it's sunny out, but it's still like 50 degrees out, so you can do something like hike and not literally sweat your whole life out and embarrass yourself. Especially women, like we're like contouring our faces and stuff
That's
with
true.
like makeup, and like we're just sitting there drenched. Like, so where'd you go to school? Like, what did you do? So I don't know. So I think that's what I like the hike. I love being outdoors.
All right,
I think
perfect.
It's like great.
All right, we'll stick with being outdoors, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something with picking. So you didn't like the apple picking. How about pumpkin picking / carving?
Okay. The first part, yes. The second part, absolutely not. That you're asking me again to do manual labor. Like I don't want to bond with you over me getting calluses on my hands. Like this is ridiculous.
You get calluses
Also-
carving pumpkins?
Hey, weapons are involved. It's
Yeah.
some bad variables going on.
Bond,
here.
I can do about 6 push-ups on my knees, so like that's my strength level. Okay, like, let's just gauge that.
Fair
First
enough.
of all,
Fair
second
enough.
of all, I had a bad experience. A certain sorority I was in made us carve pumpkins with plastic knives.
Oh,
So
that is torture.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, never mind. This was a bad question. Let's just scrap the whole thing.
I just hear them snapping, and it's just
Oh,
making my
no.
skin crawl.
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible. It was awful. But on the flip side, like painting pumpkins would be cool. I'm not very artistic, but that's
I don't think
that's
I've
less
That's an
labor.
option.
I don't think I've ever painted a pumpkin, but that's actually not a bad idea.
That's because you're not lazy, Bond, and I
No,
am.
they give me sharp objects.
A lot of
so-
times you go to market, and they have painted ones already
They do,
there.
like artistic
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. So like it's a thing.
Even better.
Saves the time.
There it is. All right, Halloween haunted house.
Oh yes,
Oh really? Oh, very nice.
yes. Okay, so
I hate
here's
this
the thing.
idea for the record.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I'll let you. Please, I'm sorry, Carter. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Okay, I love being scared. I love scary movies.
Wow.
I love really messed up scary movies too, and I also love haunted houses. I'm always the one that's going in first at the haunted houses. I'm like, yeah, bring it on. I want it. Like I am so weird. Like I love it. But my boyfriend hates all things scary.
Yes.
Like,
Team Devin right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are Team Devin on this show.
I had to go to see it with my dad because I was like, Devin,
Yeah.
go see it with me. He's
Listen,
like, absolutely
he
not.
should have come over. We could have watched football. We could have made a Sunday of it or something. Because I'm not going to see that movie with you.
Not gonna happen.
That's
so
exactly. I'm with Devin. That's exactly why I would not do this. Because I'd be the one screaming like a little girl. It'd be embarrassing.
I guess I'm just not good with getting scared. Like,
No.
like I just can't do Halloweens. Like I've been yelled at a couple times because I'm like easily startled, and I'm just taking swings at just caped people. It's not okay.
That's your slogan. Matt Trabbs, easily startled.
Incorporated.
Oh my god, that's so good. That's so good. All right, good insight. How about local farmers markets?
That's a good one. Yeah, especially like around here, there's a cider mill.
Oh.
That is kind of like a market as well, and a lot of people like going to that. It's really cute there. They have a lot of like Halloween things, and they have a lot of foods like pies. You can pick out a pie, eat the whole thing later together,
Nice.
eat that together, like you're supposed to in a relationship.
You know what's
Just get enormous.
what's really romantic? Bootleg DVDs. So,
Oh, good God.
public market, baby. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah, there's some weird stuff at a market.
Yeah, there's like goats and stuff. They're selling
I
live
don't
goats.
I don't know what market you
Yeah, what?
just some underworld market.
That's going to like the black market.
I think he was at an actual farm. That's all it was. He thought it was a market.
He was just wandering a farm, like, oh, this is beautiful.
That's not for sale. Those are ours.
He's like, support local. Like, you're just in the field, Matt.
Like, we need those goats. That's how we make a living. Wait, where am I on this list?
vey.
Oh, here we go. Is wandering around a corn maze a realistic date idea?
Realistic?
Oh, I said realistic.
Realistic.
Realistic. Crap.
Keep it rural over there.
Realistic.
Matt Trabbs, the ruralist.
I wore flannel that one time. I'm rural.
Anywho, a corn maze, I like that. Then you gotta figure it out together. But otherwise, on the flip side, if you don't really like them that much, then you might be stuck in a corn maze.
Just imagine someone come out. I was young when I got in here.
All right, this one's interesting, Carter. This is a no for me instantaneously because it involves heights.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A hot air balloon ride.
Ooh!
I get that it sounds romantic. You're not taking me up on that thing. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah, those are expensive. So you got to be dating like a high roller. To
Okay,
go onto those.
I guess that's not a bad point because I feel like I've only seen 15 hot air balloons in my entire life. So I guess
there's a festival in Syracuse.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah,
see?
they do them around here, and it's literally $250 a person.
Yay.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, for something that's completely out of control,
They have
and
like
you can't steer or control in really any way.
Hope they at least have like a cheese plate up there or something.
Yeah, they got a cheese plate and they had champagne.
Oh,
so it was a champagne
okay.
flight.
Oh, little charcutes too.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah, you get real romantic in the basket. You, your date, and the guy who was running it.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
That's so good.
Hey, I'm Rick. I'll be joining you guys today.
Yeah. Hey, Rick.
Now I like this one because you got pretty famous recently for something like this.
That's true.
Is a good date spot tailgating?
Oh God, what kind of relationship are you looking to build? Because I think it's a good place to like meet each other's friends or something like that, because everyone's having fun, everyone's having a great time, and everyone's drinking, so it's not as awkward.
Yeah.
But like if you're like that's your first time hanging out, it might be a little weird.
Yeah,
people get a little wild, and then they end up on Barstool Sports. So, I don't know about that one.
Right.
I think after a few dates and then like meeting friends or something, that would be a good place.
All right,
I can see that.
Costume shopping.
I don't know about that one.
No,
I don't know, because it's like all I think about is Party City and how annoying Party City is in there when you're by yourself, let alone someone else. Like, I don't know. Unless you're planning on doing like a couple's costume, then that's cool.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I get that.
Then you could get all excited. You could be like, "Oh my god, we can do that!" Like you'll be, blah, and I'll be whatever. You know those costumes.
It's exactly how girls react, and
it's always interesting. Like you go to Party City, like see what like the new hot costumes are. Like the new character costumes, and then like whatever. I'm not gonna say the S word, but like whatever. Like hey, instead of like hot nurse, and it's like hot Moana or something. Wait, that's
like
weird.
Sexy direct TV, like just something so stupid. They make sexy.
Sexy Flow.
Yeah.
You just mean Flow. Yeah. Progressive.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I forgot you could use sexy. I was thinking of the other word. I probably shouldn't be saying. Slutty. I said
okay.
it.
Well, then you did it. Yeah, it is.
Damn.
I'm gonna bleep you on that one just for the heck of it.
Did you ask that last one, or did I do?
No, I did. You
got
the last one. You got the last one.
Maybe I'll mispronounce this one too. All right. Take a scenic drive to see some fall foliage.
Oh, I like that one. But are you just driving around, or like I have questions?
That's what we were talking about. Yeah.
Because I feel like that eventually turns into the hike.
Yeah.
Where you get out and you wanna.
Or you bring food.
Ooh.
And you have a little picnic or something somewhere.
There you go.
You end up God knows where. You're like, oh my god, we might get murdered. We might go to second base. Like, you don't know. So that's the fun.
Oh, that's
what makes it exciting. It's the exciting part of it, right?
Yeah.
Title of the episode.
There's been a couple of good qualifications in this segment alone. Carter, you always bring it.
Oh, yeah.
I tried.
So it's mostly yeses on here. I noticed the only time she was definitive no's are the ones that I asked, which were costume shopping and apple picking.
Well, Bond, me and Trabs are just like more in tune.
I guess so.
You know?
I guess so.
He's got flannel
Just damn
on,
flannel.
and like I immediately am drawn to him. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
The white girl inside me is like, oh my god.
Oh my god.
He probably loves John Mayer and Place lattes.
He's so soulful.
Has a lot of feelings.
That's not him at all.
Wow.
I couldn't think of any songs he sings. Oh, Body's a Wonderland. There you go.
Classic.
All right. Very nice. All right, Ashley Carter, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Ashleigh Carter. Probably won't be getting famous anytime soon again. So
it's awesome.
You were real famous.
Look it up.
Wow.
Yes,
Week one of the Bills. My gosh.
Everyone listening should just look back and find it.
It's easily found. All right, Ashley, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys.
That was all really loud. That was just bad mixing on my part.
I like it.
That's really bad mixing
right
on my
to your
part.
brain.
We might fix that in post. We might not. I don't know. All right, time for It's Got Legs. The last story of TBD. Has Mayweather-McGregor sparked anarchy?
And I like anarchy. That's how Teddy Atlas would say it.
It's in combat sports. Former heavyweight champion George Foreman tweeted out challenging Steven Seagal to a fight. The champ said, and I want to quote here, I challenge you one-on-one. I use boxing. You can use whatever. 10 rounds in Vegas. I use boxing.
Oh. But we were talking about a few weeks ago, like, Alistair Overeem versus Anthony Joshua, and they'd be doing MMA. But that's like still pretty normal and still a lot closer to Mayweather-McGregor than whatever this would be. George Foreman versus Steven Seagal and any weapon possible.
What would Steven Seagal use?
You know what I hope? I hope he uses
nunchucks.
I hope he. Oh my gosh, yes. But besides what he was known for back in the day, it's more svelte self. I would say use a Foreman grill, baby.
Okay, there you go.
You just call him Sear Gall.
Yeah, the grill. Good God. The grill master, as he is affectionately referred to himself. Yeah, exactly. 81 professional fights. He's 68 years old. Are you interested in seeing that, Trabs? Because I just no. I'm interested in seeing more tweets, but that's
it's this part of the tweet. You can use whatever. Hit him with his car? Like, I don't understand.
Ridiculous. It's absurd. All right, let's go to thank yous. Our thanks to Spencer German at 97.5, the team in Rochester. New FOTS. Our thanks to recurring FOTS. Nate Rowan, the director of communications. I almost called him the PR guy, but that's on his Twitter account. Of the Rochester Red Wings, all-around nice guy. And Ashleigh Carter, the female correspondent of To Be Determined, for joining us. Our thanks to the senior producer, at Mitch Mula, Mitch Beluco. Our thanks to the executive producer at Sports by Mom, who cooked the chili. Did not use James's semi-sweet chocolate recipe, though, which I was disappointed in. Make sure you check out the show, ToBeDeterminedShow.com, TBD_show on Twitter, To Be Determined Show on Instagram, Facebook.com/ToBeDeterminedPod, TBDmailman@gmail.com. Anything else?
I like our friends.
Later, boys.